Hi, everybody. I am Haley Mitchell-Haugen. I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. Tonight, I welcome you to a celebration of the book Survival Time by Simona Carini. And we also have some open mic readers here tonight to celebrate our winter 2022 issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online. Simona Carini was born in Perugia, Italy. She writes poetry and nonfiction. She's been published in a variety of venues in print and online. She lives in Northern California, and she works as an academic researcher. So welcome, Simona. So exciting for us to have you here to finally celebrate this amazing collection. Welcome.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Sheila-Na-Gig Editions, for publishing my collection. And also, since you mentioned various readings, I wanted to thank you also for creating a community around Sheila-Na-Gig Online. We've been meeting fairly regularly, and it's just great to share our poetry. So the title of the collection is taken from the first poem, and I promised I would also say something about the photograph, which is also related to the first poem. And I took the photograph while riding as a passenger in a car going through a tunnel called Laurel Tunnel, which is in Norway. And it's the tunnel is slightly over 15 miles long, and it changes. And in the poem, I will talk about how it changes. Laurel Tunnel. Bare rock overhead presses on both sides. For 20 minutes, deep inside this Norwegian mountain, I travel, hold on to the sense of forward motion. This is happening to us, not only to me, you said. I inhale deeply from a place where my fears lodged of seeing you in pain, ceasing to breathe, to relish life with me. Only the tunnel and no laughing. We accepted smiles when thanking white coats for bad news. Meta, chemo, radio, full turns truncated, tamed. At the beginning, familiar words sounded stilted. How did you sleep? An evasion. Would you like some fish for dinner? Insensitive. But we still wanted to talk. Go for a walk, not into exile from each other. 5 minutes in, the ceiling rises, the walls recede as if the tunnel is breathing in, and the air turns blue, soft and brilliant, a deep pool in sunlight. Deeper into the mountain, dark again. When you have cancer, your life is called survival time. Time scale changes from years to months, birthdays, anniversaries erased from the calendar. Instead, blood tests, scans, visits, drug refills. The tunnel expands into a blue hall again. Yellow light peeks from the floor, hinting at sunrise. Azure washes my face like diving into the Caribbean Sea looking for my favorite damselfish, blue with stars on its body. We've learned to discuss your bike rides, my riding, the ocean, details that define us, not birthdays or anniversaries, but the days at home, dancing around the stove, car trips with the cats, nights in our bed, staring in silence at the new moon. Thank you. Conversation. How is he doing? I row at dawn when silence rules the bay. The marina sleeps, night thaws into downy dawn. Fog hovers on shore. Light diffuses like stereophonic sound from dual speakers. Above, clear sky, sharp-edged, unquestionable in its blue righteousness. What does the doctor say? Brown pelicans are the coolest birds. They show off, I swear, fly fast a few inches off the water, aerodynamic, touch down, then drift. Shooting stars, they dive, surface, bill full. Egrets are different. Still, they scan the water, strike, suck. A glint quivers and dies, as if nothing happened. How are you holding on? Only the oars to hold on to once I push off the dock. They keep me balanced as I glide, the future behind me. A tide can't always be high. It ebbs, rolls back. I row for an hour, then work, the house, the cats, take refuge in a no-wake zone. Words go too fast. Forgive my stillness. Trees recur in the book, and the forest is a favorite space. Rock and light. I run among trees, the Pacific rumbling behind morning fog, the trail strewn with leaves and small branches washed down by storms, past vacant campsite, picnic tables coated with moss, empty benches, no one watching the waves, a towering rock, sparkling igneous diamonds. Time deposits layers on it, erodes them. The park is mine, greens, browns, and grays at the horizon. Refined by quick breathing, I emerge mother of pearl. As I turn, the sunlight lancing through Sitka spruce forms a fan of rays. As a child, I thought it was God. I still do. My hometown of Perugia is about 15 miles from Assisi. And so St. Francis has been a presence in my life since the beginning. And St. Francis wrote the Canticle of the Creatures circa 1224-25, and in vernacular Italian. And in it, St. Francis thanks God for brother sun, sister moon, etc., and finishes with sister death. And this poem, this next poem, is my homage to St. Francis' poem. Addendum to the Canticle of the Creatures, written on the California North Coast. From a blue so deep, the sky burns in envy, to a gentle gray, a shade darker than the compact clouds above. Every few hours, you don a different dress, striped or solid, white laced or embroidered by emerging sea stacks. Rolling in pianissimo or raging to shore, you are best as mirror to my internal churn. I write edgy footprints at your door. The tide picks them. You are worst when your hypnotic motion lures. Waves crawl ashore, slide back and core, then slaps me with cold water. If fog shrouds you, your roar lets me know you are there. Unless I hear you, how can I be sure of anything? Praise be you, brother ocean. You fill me. No other so close to me. So this next poem is a sestina. Just quickly, a sestina is consists of 6 stanzas, and every stanza is made up of 6 lines. And the end words of the first stanza then are also the end words on each following stanzas, but in a different order. And then at the end, the poem has an ending, a 3-line coda in which the 6 words appear. So there's a lot of repetition you will hear. And the sestina was inspired by a trip my husband and I took to Torres del Paine National Park in Patagonia. And this was the first week of March 2020, before travel pretty much stopped. Mirador Las Torres, the Plainlands, Patagonia, Andean peaks I dreamed one day of ascending. The road from Punta Arenas crosses a wind-whipped plain, no blue, only brown bush under leaden clouds, a slit-skin raw landscape. My eyes sheer away from the green ground strewn with rocks. At the park entrance, no bush, just rocks. In the distance, the massive peaks. The curtains in the lodge's room, lacy and sheer, let the outside in. My gaze ascends as a breeze chases away the clouds, backlit by the setting sun, pinnacles haloed by blue. The morning after, sunrise lights the east pale blue, sets the granite walls ablaze, massive rocks emerging from a bank of soft clouds. Torres del Paine, 3 towering peaks. The flashing mountains call me to ascend, the flank they offer impregnable, sheer. I cross a valley, enter the sheer cool nave of a beech forest. The air darkens to blue. Among the breeze-swayed gnarled trees, solemn as monks whose chant ascends from choir stalls. Past the woods, the moraine awaits, rocks piled on steep terrain. I often can't see the peaks. Climb, clasp branches to brace my pilgrimage to the clouds. Andean condors soar, float weightless, clouds. High wind, panting, boots crunching gravel, sheer fatigue focuses me on steady steps towards the peaks. I hope the sky will turn for a moment blue. The trail levels out. Behind the last line of rocks, the vista opens onto the prize for my ascent. Silence attends the arrival from the hours-long ascension. The 3 torres rise into torn clouds, prongs of a trident, giant rocks of gray granite, their sheer faces unyielding. At their feet, a serene lake of unique blue, liquid turquoise. A breeze clears the sky around the peaks. Quickly, it is over. A train of clouds wraps around the peaks. The earlier vision erased becomes a rock-solid memory of granite and blue. I descend with it, a sacred relic wrapped in silken sheer. Thank you. And after a longish poem, a short one. Life on the Edge. On the wind-blown bluff, splashed by salt spray, a tuft of Indian paintbrush, flames of scarlet bracts, turn the hostile slope into host. Kelp-flavored air in my lungs, I bloom here too. This next poem is for all who've ever undergone chemotherapy. I ask my friend how she feels. Her response: on chemo, I open my eyes and it is always infusion day, the weeks in between fused. On chemo, I steep milky tea, keep constant watch as fear stages a coup every hour. I wash lettuce, leaf by leaf, and short of breath, I smell cells killed by the drugs, metallic. On chemo, I drop a frame, pick up the shards, cannot compose the full picture. On chemo, I look around for my running shoes, the favorite blue shirt I lost, to put them on again. On chemo, I watch a blue jay hop, a squirrel dart, and I want off chemicals, off cancer. I dance a few steps, an oil-slicked bird thrashing its wings around, calling it flying. This next poem is also about birds. It was inspired by common swifts, which are called in Italian rondoni. The shrill scream of common swifts at sunset promised spring, longer days, warmer weather, summer soon. From the balcony, you watch them dive, whirl, soar, circle, dark, slender body, forked tail, long swept back wings like crescents. Their flight fast, effortless, their loops, spells. They would be loud again as summer waned, a call to prepare to migrate south of the equator. You yearn to join the swoop, fly to tropical peace, away from the frigid draft between your parents, your mother's anger storms, your father's bitter counters. You wanted to grow wings, rise high, sweep down. One day you left by rail. Blizzards never ended at home. You learned it was not your burden to turn its winter into springs. In November 2016, my husband and I went to Iceland, and it took some convincing, but once there, I fell in love with the country. On the Golden Circle, Iceland, geyser Strokkur hurls water at the sky. The spout collapses, sprays around. A pause, again. Hot water explodes at each beat of Earth's boiling heart. Up the road, Gullfoss. The Vita River falls, then falls again. We stand a step away from cancer's lurch. The rains will fail and death approach and pound like water the rock floor. Until that day, I need no geyser nor cascade, but crave lava fields softened by ancient moss that grows at coral's speed. Icelandic horse and I trotting on Viking trails, all breeze and drizzle. I smell wet earth, horses sweat, taste nostalgia for a place not yet left, and ache for someone not yet lost. And I'm going to end the reading with a poem aptly titled December 31st. Some days there is no horizon, no edge where the Pacific dips and the sky rises. Blue, your eyes, the evening air, a flock of shorebirds running behind a retreating wave, raking the wet sand with quick beaks, then backing away from the wave washing ashore, again and again, like breathing. The end arrives with our last breath, alongside the last sound we make. We carry nothing with us, not even a gulp of air. Will I, on the final exhale, remember kindness in your gaze? The shorebirds never rail against the coming wave for being early, too strong. They accept the aftermath, the food the ebbing water leaves. Drenched in the last light of the year, just wait, you're not alone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Simona. It's so wonderful to finally hear you read these poems and just get lost in the sound of your voice and your beautiful images. So thank you so much. Simona's book is Survival Time, available from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And we'll be moving now into our open mic reading, celebrating the winter 2022 issue of Sheila-Na-Gig Online. Our first reader is Laurel Benjamin.
Thank you, Haley. And it's such a pleasure following Simona with all the loveliness there, the textures and everything. Haley, thank you so much for making this reading possible. And it's my pleasure to be in this terrific journal that I've been seeking out and reading for some time. So it's a thrill to be here. So I'm Laurel Benjamin, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And both pieces appear in the issue. The first piece was inspired by a giant sculpture at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. And it was made entirely of calligraphy paper, if you can believe it. And calling it giant doesn't do it justice because it was almost as tall as the ceiling and equally wide. So if you can imagine that experience. It's called Tear Formation. I thirst for the paper, ask the artist showing her work to tear and perforate me, turning me sideways. I long to be cradled into the hung, shuddering pieces. Wish my mother were here to sing its praises. She who calligraphied paper, she who origamied paper, marbled paper, she would have created an ode to this beast, where people walk through a tunnel emitting their chatter, then gasps as they disappear. I've questioned the way we depend on cloud's ability to mediate with sonorous space, like a magic trick box suspended with the assistant inside, magician demonstrating, no strings, no gravity. And I think as I enter the paper tunnel, this is my journey without my mother, my own crescendo as I elbow the soft, torn edges. Like the homemade paper sheets she made, uneven and imperfect, with nubs and whispers of plant matter. The inside resonates with air, in sync with thunderous shifts on all sides as I make my way through. Thank you. So as I said, I live in California, and as you know, the weather's been crazy here with rain, and mudslides and everything. But last year when I wrote the second piece, I was more caught up with what was going on the East Coast with the hurricanes. And it's called They'll Never Name a Hurricane After Me. And it's true, my hair reddens to the war of air. My arms curl, eyes close to the rising. I pass by homes, pierced through glass, where a woman measures out the wrong ingredients in lemon bars, got it wrong like a novice. Her downfall, as the bowl breaks, roiling my lust over flooding rivers. I pour myself into the surge, drop trees, batter and trap people on roofs until dogs howl with eyebrows curved. Yellow tiger lily streaks running through green stems. And the cat, she bears music from gnashing jaws, mortality built into ears. I head for a neatly laid out highway lined with palm trees, a beach thick with golden granules. I perjure umbrellas, knots blood tied, doubled and doubled. In plans for a full-scale storm, I only name myself for the fallen, though it's not so much. Plastic chairs blown onto a hillside, cups with straws who bend their heads like flamingos who have finished their dance. Thank you.
Our next reader is Laura Ann Reed.
I'm unmuted, and it's my pleasure to be here. This is my first time, my first my first poems in Sheila-Na-Gig, and I hate to say it, but I've only just recently discovered this wonderful journal and immediately submitted some poems. And the first poem, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, native of Berkeley, California, but moved here about 20 years ago with my husband. And the first poem I'm going to read is in the winter edition, and it is called Kindness. Kindness. Young, I learned that my father's father, who in his mid-50s and aware he'd soon succumb to stomach cancer, told his only son to leave the room until he could compose himself. Compose. How did my father construe that command to reconfigure himself into a man who showed no emotion? A symphony without violins. I consider the shape of my father's sadness, that circle of eternal return, that stasis whose undercurrent of grief never seemed to change. I mean, what if he'd been summoned to his father's bedside for a last embrace? Might not his sadness have become a pair of parallel lines, or perhaps a spiral, some form suggesting movement or metamorphosis? Even if his father wanted nothing more keenly than to lean into silence, escape his pain, why the unkindness? I turn my mind to the day my father lay bathed in the waning light of his own dying, to the hour before the doctor removed his breathing tubes, when I sat by the bed weeping, and my mother, never one to accept defeat, said, "Mel, if you stay, I promise I won't ever say another word about how you forget to close the cabinet doors." Then that effort to wrench himself back from the threshold of darkness, a darkness that beckoned to him like an adoring parent. How slowly he rolled his head on the sweat-drenched pillow to face the direction of her voice. The kindness in his smile, it was blinding. The second poem I'm going to read to you is the title poem of my new chapbook, Shadows Thrown. I'm sorry, I hate to admit it, but I don't seem to be able to get this on chat. So wanted to mention this is the title poem of my new chapbook, Shadows Thrown. In his death, my father wanders among the rose garden stone terraces in the Berkeley Hills, that vast amphitheater of wind and shifting light. He stops, shades his eyes, squints at the bay and at the city beyond, its towers of steel and concrete, its windows that glint in the lowering sun. I once floated rose petals down Strawberry Creek while he played tennis set after set. He prayed he'd fall dead in old age after acing a serve, his racket clattering, although it didn't happen that way. He glides by the courts now, oblivious to the cyclone fences and nylon nets. He gazes instead at the shadows thrown by roses onto the gravel paths, or he slips into the small waterfall where Strawberry Creek spills from a ledge into a bowl of moss-covered rock. Other times he peers up at the living sky, hears traces of bright laughter from the throat of his child, and quietly enters the fog that drifts up the hill from the sea, dissolving in a saline mist that begins to taste of him, barely recalling the scent of grief. Thank you. Thank you.
And I think I'm up next, right, Haley?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Marjorie Maddox, and thank you to Haley and Barbara for this wonderful winter issue. I'm going to read the two poems that appear in the issue. The first is a two-parter. So this is called When We Are Lost, How We Are Found. 1. when we are lost. A speck on a slide beneath the eye of a sanitized microscope, inside the high rise of science that, from its penthouse view, takes a perfectly executed nosedive into a glass of river water that is you, swished together with dead photoplankton, then slurps you up, spits you out, catalogs who and what you are according to your own Morse code zip code, or 6 left turns on a long and winding trail in a forgotten rainforest, whichever comes first, that leads eventually to your DNA buried beneath the 3rd rock on the right on the night that Cassiopeia boasts her brightest charms, all to publish, mind you, in strict APA format, your cascading hair and crooked toes alongside the hard-to-define hue of your torso, lying down in green pastures or floating in still waters between the pressed pages of this year's meticulously peer-reviewed, prestigious journal, now on sale for $39.99 at most Ivy League institutions with an active membership subscription up until the summer solstice, but not after. 2, how we are found. Not slip sliding away that same drop of me, you, us, in breeze or creek, cumulus or reef, whiplashing what's left of then into now. And not that mindfulness moment invented by blade and slug on a day not unlike tomorrow's in the middle of nothing, but the same. Me, you, us on display, but rather something indescribably and irretrievably in between. So that's for all those in academia who feel the pressure to publish. The second one is also in this issue, and I'm going to share my screen. So I wanted to share this because my daughter and I have a book coming out on Mother's Day entitled In the Museum of My Daughter's Mind. And we've collaborated on this, and there are a few other artists, but it's primarily artwork by my daughter. And I was excited to have this in Sheila-Na-Gig. And if you look really closely, you can kind of see the outline of a skull, kind of a shadow of this one. And by the way, Robbi gave me some nice feedback on this manuscript too, so a shout out to Robbi. So this is called Bare Minimum, after the painting by Annalie Hafer. Beneath whitewash, sternum, neck, skull, the fog of face, the residue of dream released to scream or freedom, no comment. Unclothed of skin and woven expectations, bone stacks on bone, exposes the core of caustic commentary. What we see is, beneath the said, no comment, is not the bared, but the unbearable. Here I am, of society's design on us. I am breathing bare, here. Thank you.
Well, it's good to be here with everybody, and thanks, Haley, for putting this program on. My name's Robert Dean. I live in Kansas, and I know we have some Ohioans here. Kansas City is going to beat Cincinnati on Sunday. That said, I'm going to read the 2 poems that were in the recent issue. And thanks, first of all, to Simona for going over this first poem and correcting my Spanish, and also apologies to Sheila-Na for probably misreading a lot of the Spanish words that are in this piece. It's called Tango el Sueño. Your foot breaks off at the ankle, and I am left with a high heel and a lump of ash between my beige paisley and black leather shoes. A mordida for the ages, and I wonder how you have managed thus far on those stiletto heels and peep toes without crumbling completely, like that bonfire at sunset on Playa Positos the day before we took the book bus across Rio de la Plata to Buenos Aires and learn these steps, this figure of salida, walk, cross, resolution, dance floor rolled out over the cobblestones of Plaza Dorrego. The old couple who taught us, a scratchy Carlos Gardel crooning from the throne-wide doors of the corner cafe. Open embrace, then chest to chest, arm on shoulder, leaning into each other. Because you are young, she says, eyes sparking, and speaking of burnt things in your arm, there it goes with a crunch, and bring across the ephemeral stage of La Comparsita, smoldering the years to come, tango of here today, gone tomorrow, burning nights, tropic days. Did I moth you to the flame, or did you spontaneously combust? Oh, we were warned all right, but the firemen arrive too late every time one of us fans the door on the other. Though the corridas, the lastradas never burn as hot with mannequin milongueros, and the bandoneon wheezes at last, and we return to our abrazo, the searing, deathly embrace, iron-fisted. I crush you to me, and you collapse. So many flakes of selfish night. I smoke the perfume of you, or who you once were. So intense you linger, I too ghost on, or who I once was. And in the mirrored cafe window, I see one of us still standing, still leading, still following, empty of embrace, full of ourselves, a heap of cinders, stirring under tangled soles and stiletto heels. The Sunday afternoon square, empty of dancers. Thank you. And the second one is a short one. I wish I may, I wish I may, I wish I might. That's the title. I flip a coin. It sticks in the overhead, 1 star burning. I flip more, empty my pockets, 7 stars, but none flicker. Did I find them along the way, or did you give them to me, or does it matter? What shall I use for the moon? I toss up a memory from a night when I was 8. We sat on the steps and sang When You Wish Upon a Star. And Jiminy Cricket chirped in from under the porch, and one of us grew up and the other one didn't. But which was which, I'm not so sure. Another coin, it wasn't there before. I toss it, not so high this time. Call heads, it lands tails in my palm. Stars blink, moon sheds a tear. Do you remember me? Thank you. That's it.
Hi, my name's Karen George, and I live in Florence, Kentucky. And this first poem I'm going to read was part of the winter 2022 issue, and it was inspired by Kees van Dengen's 1920 painting titled The Violinist. And I don't know how to share a screen, so I didn't mess with that. Playing for the Lost. A tall, sinuous woman leans against a midnight blue piano, plays a violin tucked between chin and shoulder, lace sachets at her wrists, and deep V-neck teal dress, dark hair, dramatic brows, eyes closed, half her face shadowed blue. Oh, her body, the body of the piano with its blocky legs, the hourglass violin, the wide-hipped face and its mirror image cast on the piano lid, whelmed with late afternoon sun and the ecstasy of Paganini's Caprice No. 5. Voluptuous, veiled blue notes rise, fall, catch, amass in the indigo vase, its glass pulsing with the plucked strings. She pours herself out, tilts, elongates, creates space to cradle joy, grief, wonder, inextricably spliced. The air ambers, hums. And this second poem is a prose poem that was published in the Pandemic Evolution Anthology of Poets Responding to the Art of Matthew Wolfe. Rewound. You're rushed to the ER, can't breathe. X-rays reveal your right lung collapsed. Doctor asks if you'd had a bad car crash because your left lung looks as if it was crushed a long time ago. Imagine our surprise when you retell the story and realize the Army never divulged your lungs' condition. If they had, would you have stopped smoking, lived past 63? 42 years ago, an explosion. You wake from a weeks-long coma in an Army hospital. Learn a landmine catapulted the Jeep into the river. The driver drowned. The dog dragged you to shore by your uniform. I envision you in that open-air vehicle, a fellow soldier driving beside you, the unit's adopted dog snug in the back cargo space. You're only 18. The sun, hot on the khaki covering your shoulders, echoes the feral musk of the dog's coat and the muddy scent of the river stretching ahead of you like your life. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Hilbert from Long Beach, California. What a pleasure to be among such beautiful poets. Thank you so much, Haley, for all you do for poetry. And Barbara, thank you. And a joy to be here. The first poem I'm going to read is from the winter issue of the wonderful Sheila-Na-Gig. Field Notes, Peninsula in January. A foretaste of spring on migrant waterfowl wings. Heron builds a nest in the lone coral tree, others in palm after palm. 3 days of sun, a tsunami warning, a bit of rain. The sky returns to mottled gray for just one day. Thin, angled light, dry and bright. Seasons are very subtle here in California. Well, they're sort of like flood and fire. We have those seasons. And then in between, fabulous weather. And the next poem is More, and it was published in One Art at the end of last year, and both poems are from my manuscript in progress, coming along. Okay, More. I want more pages in my day planner with its tidy squares and room on the side for to-dos to be checked off. And I want that list to never end. I want one page after another and another to appear in unending supply, the way peanut butter jars appear in the cupboard, and I'm aghast at their number and know you've been to that big box store once again, so it takes me forever to find the tiny jar of saffron stuck in the back. I want more dreams of falling for the joyful relief at awakening from the chasm of sleep, to consult my day planner and tick off tasks that annoy me. I want more days to gripe in my mind about tiny hillocks of crumbs you've left on the counter while slicing bread from Gusto's on 4th Street, bought in such quantity and stuffed in the freezer that I can't find my tiny pint of mint chip ice cream. Then the drip drop of red wine, the drip drop of tomato from the salad you made for me last night. I want more of that on the counter. I want more mornings when your heavy breathing wakens me from sleep, when your 5-pillow chateau threatens to topple and smother me, and I get up with the sun and head out for my walk when the glorious unfolding of the day is waiting. Thank you.
Wow, Donna, that was great. I love that last poem so much. My name is George Franklin. I'm down here in Miami where the weather's been pretty good and we can't really complain about things. And so I'm going to read two poems. I've got Haley's permission not to read from the magazine this time. So I'm going to read two poems from my new book, from Sheila-Na-Gig, that's in pre-order, shameless plug. The first one is called Writing About Your Country. In the next room, you're writing about your country, about a man who wouldn't leave his farm and was killed by paramilitaries, about hillsides thick with trees, green moss covering a stone, a boulder. It makes me think of our friend Federico, who practices medicine in a small town in the Andes. I hunted for it on the map, and it was hard to find. The pictures on Google showed a white church and narrow streets, nearby mountains, clouds that seemed close. In the next room, you were close also, closer than clouds hovering above a valley or the sound of motorcycles fading into something that's almost silence. I can hear a piano, passages of Chopin, a disc you were playing on an old laptop as you work, a few dates and almonds in a bowl within reach, as close as the asylum narratives you translated, refugees who applied for visas during the bad years, years that haven't stopped, applicants threatened by gangs, by paramilitaries, guerrillas, so many stories you had to find words for in cold, precise English, voices you transposed from Colombia or Venezuela, reminding you of relatives in Cali, or when you taught workshops in Buenaventura, voices to cut through the dull gaze of immigration officials, their eagerness to finish work, to go play golf or tennis on the weekend. In the next room, I can hear you whispering lines of a poem, the same way I do, the same way we all do when we write, listening to ourselves, to our own voices, trying to decipher the words that will break through our own dull gaze. In the next room, you are writing about your country, which is both far away and close to you. From where I'm sitting, I can hear you whisper. And the second poem that I'm going to read is called Palm Fronds. You say palm fronds at night remind you of Colombia, of the house where you grew up by the Rio Cali, the shaded sidewalk between that street and river, the school next door, the zoo around the corner, the steep hill and steps leading to your dinner, the noise of cars with bad exhausts, evening, and someone's old record player, notes of salsa heard from down the block. You say there's something ineffable at night. We could be walking in Seville or Barcelona to a reading at Juan Pablo Roa's bookstore, or out for dinner to a restaurant on La Rambla. There's so many places we've never seen, towns in Umbria or Provence, a harbor with sun-bleached houses in the Aegean. Why are we hungry for these places, talking about them as we walk, hands touching, along a suburban canal in Miami, power lines stretching black across the moonlight above our heads? Did the moon shine like this in Cali years ago as you walked thinking of Madrid, of Paris, the Alhambra? We'll get there, mi amor, I promise. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robbi Nester, and I have a couple poems for you today. The first one was in this issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, and I thank Haley for sticking me in at the last minute because I screwed up the sign up. This is Unzipped. We started on the same path, walked to school in snow and rain, in our red, pink, and blue rain slickers and boots, winter hats, laughing in the wind, the cold smell of spring mud rising in the gutter, bright October leaves pressed between our palms. But then our roads diverged, no yellow wood, just life's ordinary detours, the metal track, gray steel teeth parted in regret, heading off in two directions. Any moment, an unseen hand may bring us back together, two tracks merging into one. And this one was in the Schuylkill Valley Journal. It's the first time I published there, even though I'm from that area. The strangers beside us. Who was that woman, wizened as a wine sap, too long in the bowl, in her dowdy shirtwaist and old lady shoes, her long hair bound up in a bun, curled tight in the dark nest of her hair, like a sleeping field mouse in a tuft of grass. She never answered questions about her life. Where she was born was no one's business but her own. But I wanted to know where we all came from, besides from underneath our mother's skirts, that other place no one ever talked about. What oceans had she sailed? Who came with her? Or was she alone? Most storytellers start with other stories, shadows of the actual. Why did her in-laws spurn her and the children after her first husband's death? We can speculate, spin elaborate narratives, but do we ever really know our ancestors, even if we're living in their houses, sitting in their chairs, staring at their portraits on the wall? And I want to thank, in parting, thank Bob Dean for doing my genealogy so I know more about these family members. Thanks a lot, Bob.
That's great. Thank you for reading, Robbi, and thank you for all our open mic readers from our winter edition. And a huge thank you to Barbara Sable, my assistant editor. I could not continue to create these issues without her curation. So thank you. A lot goes on behind the scene that you all don't see, and it's a ton of work. And thank you, Simona Carini, for sharing your beautiful collection and letting Sheila-Na-Gig have the honor of publishing Survival Time. It is a true honor. You can find us at sheila-na-gigblog.com online. Where you'll find information about upcoming readings and other books. So thank you all so much for being here.